Hello and welcome to another episode of Business and Bubble Tea. I am so excited to be introducing a PHBS alumnus, Erdi Tak, the co-founder of Katoven AI. Erdi, it's fantastic to have you on the podcast with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Hi, Erdi. We'll just mention PHBS. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about your experience here at PHBS?
Oh, all right. Okay. So PHBS, it was an interesting one. It's like the first time when I was in China. It's like, okay, so let me think about some memories actually. Maybe I'll tell you something about. Okay.
How did you arrive here in China?
What we're getting at is this: the China journey. How did that really kick off for you? So you came out of PHBS, but when did the China journey start for you?
That is a little bit long story. I'll keep it short for you, though. So when I was in my bachelor, it's like I did a summer school in the US, and the first time I met some Chinese there. And the way they talk about China is like complete opposite of what I know about the country, like the food, like their habits, the economy and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a completely blank map for me. I know nothing about that place. And so like a few years later, I was gonna go and exchange, and I was looking at that list and I see Hong Kong there. And I'm like, okay, why not? Just like go and then learn more about that place. And I was in Hong Kong, like a friend mentioned, let's just like go to next door city called Shenzhen. Never heard of it. And it's like I came here, they took me to this place called Huatianbei, which is the electronic market. The reason is like I was studying electronics engineering, right? And man, that place is like crazy because for an engineering student, why?
Bit of a melting pot of different types of companies out there, and obviously we now have Huawei and all these sorts of huge major tech companies in China, and we're looking at Katoven AI as potentially being one of them, I suppose. Could you tell us a little bit about what is the problem you're solving?
So what we do with Katoven AI is like teachers, it's about language teaching industry, right? So for language teachers, they spend a lot of time doing some very time-consuming work of preparing lessons, maybe understanding their students' level, and then finding the right material for them, preparing exercises for them, right? Like maybe making it simpler for lower-level students. And what we realized, like we actually can help them using this new technology called NLP. And we started doing that in my old company. We offered a project to them, and we realized, okay, the results are good enough to be applicable. And after that, we left the company and started doing this by ourselves. So we try to offer all the things, the pain points that I just listed using AI, and basically teachers just save a lot of time.
Did it actually started here in Shenzhen? Is this the city that gave you the spark that led you to the creation of Katoven AI?
Absolutely. I was working in Shenzhen. Since PHBS, I have been always in Shenzhen, right? And then I worked here for an ad tech company, and there I met a very interesting guy, which is my co-founder now. And we started to like affect each other to learn about this technology, right? So you can basically say like because of Shenzhen, I had to start this company. And back then, before the government did the double reduction in education, English learning was a huge thing here. Like probably one of the highest salaries paid for English teachers. PHBS students would know that, the international one.
There's a lot on offer in the way of providing English teaching jobs, I'd say. That's certainly still very much the case out here. I guess one question I have, we'll turn back to NLP and where you see that going, particularly within the sphere of edtech, is what's made you stay in China? What has really kind of kept you here as a sort of environment, as an entrepreneur, to be operating out in Shenzhen?
All right. So what happened right after I graduated from PHBS, right? I didn't want to go back to my home country. I just wanted to stay here and observe more, because the reason I came here was I was fascinated with the speed, and it just
The China speed.
feels exactly. It just feels like I'm going back in history when I go back home, and as a person who is really into technology, you want to always see the edge, like the frontier, whatever is happening, you want to just experience it. And then it's what's happening here, honestly, not anywhere else. So I'm like, okay, let's stay here, find a job here, and continue to laugh.
And did you start this company with a Chinese co-founder or with another international co-founder? Because we had a chat with Rohit, and he was mentioning the difficulty of starting a company in this country for foreigners. So how was your experience in this from this point of view?
I think like here, like in China specifically, you have to have a Chinese partner if you want to start a company. I think it's like a must, because I mean, you learn the language, right? You can speak maybe fluently, but there is always something you will keep missing and you will keep learning. And that is somehow covered with a local person. Like this is number one.
What do you think that is? That the sort of, I don't know, X factor
that we are missing.
Yeah, this nuanced element that I guess a sort of local co-founder could help bring to the table. Could you put your finger on it if I asked you to?
All right. So I'll tell you about that. About my co-founder, he's a special person. He's actually more into tech than me. I'm the person who looks at the business side, but I always need the help of someone in China when I'm dealing with any Chinese customer or with any Chinese business. Let's say if you want to sell to. So what happens most of the time? When you are talking to them, there will be some pieces of information you will not be able to get. I mean, you understand everything, but then the way they talk is so. When there is a Chinese, they feel very close to each other, and then the conversation just flows right away. But when I come into the picture, if I am doing it alone, it will just keep stucking at some points. And so I believe it is the way the Chinese people are communicating. There's always like a hidden piece inside, and you need to always try to, decode that part in your mind, because we don't have it naturally. But somehow the way the Chinese communicate, they have it intrinsically.
Would you say it's as much what's unspoken as much spoken? That's kind of what's going on, and that's that nuanced difference.
Absolutely. That's like one piece of it, and then there's always a way of doing business in China which is very different from the way you talk to Europeans. Like we have European customers, and I am the only one who need to deal with them, and it's like so easy.
What is this difference that you notice? What is it about specifically?
So it's very direct when I'm talking to any foreign business. They have certain needs, and then we have certain offerings. We sit on the table. They try to see if we can do that, and they try to help us if we are lacking some pieces that they need. But in China, you don't really talk directly about these stuff. You talk about many other things that are not related to the business at all. And
I suppose
yeah.
it's a bit about building that kind of that guanxi, that word that gets thrown around so much when it comes to doing business in China. I'm just wondering, as I guess an expat here, how have you best navigated that yourself? If we just sort of remove the Chinese co-founder a bit from the picture, how do you best reconcile that with how you operate yourself in Shenzhen?
That is an interesting question. Yeah, right.
It's not an easy one.
No, it's not an easy one at all. So what I would say is, to get around well, you definitely need the language, right? And I tried to learn that by myself, and then also joined some courses. And eventually, in my old company, I started to have the meetings in Chinese. So without the language, it's always difficult. So that is number one, right? And number two is to get into you need to be really interested in the culture, and you need to accept it as it is. You would see some foreigners around, they would not even get into knowing what is going on in China, right? Like between the people, sometimes they would even get angry at some certain stuff, like it's so different. But you need to have that mindset of, okay, this is how it is here, and let me try to understand why. And maybe I can also change into being something like that when I'm communicating with them. I keep saying them, but then like I kind of become half Chinese here, like that's what people tell me.
What do you say is some of those nuanced sort of acceptances you've had to adjust for? I guess you mentioned a bit directness. Europeans, straight up directness about what needs to be done, the offerings, this sort of thing. And I guess with China, it's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like one piece of it. You can't be too direct, and so as a subtitle to that, you cannot expect people to tell you everything all the time. And if you try nagging and asking more details, that's actually not nice and not the way to communicate. So that would be like one important lesson to learn. For example, when you are working with a boss, like with a superior, if they somehow hinted you not to, they don't want to tell you, so you better don't ask more. So this is like one piece of it. You accept it this way.
What's the secret in communicating? Because maybe you need that information. So how do you get there?
Oh yeah, so that comes when you get closer, and you see, you gotta. There is a level of relationship here, and when you somehow pass that, you can easily ask for that in between the communication. So that's how you need to do it.
I see. So it's much more nuanced.
Exactly.
It's all about that friendship that we were mentioning also with Mauro in a previous episode, to become friends with your business partners.
I think, I agree 100%. You have to be friend with your partner, with whoever you are doing business with. They are your natural friends somehow on this WeChat, checking your moments, and you are communicating with them, and going out for dinner, sharing lots of personal stuff, and then you can ask for more.
What's I guess one key lesson that's always been, or one truth that you've always noticed with doing business out in China? If you could say, like, is it, observing these rules? Is it being patient all the time, even though you don't have all the information to hand?
That's true. You gotta be patient, but more importantly, you need to know someone to introduce you to someone. So that is, for example, for when we try to find some customers in Japan, I can email them directly, and some of them will reply, and the percentage is really high. But I can't imagine this happening in China. I have to be introduced to someone, and I need to find. I mean, actually, like the funny thing is, sometimes you don't even know the person to introduce you to that person, but that is easier to find. So you have to find a person to introduce you to someone else. That is like the key, I would say, to somehow get
Just
some real customers.
degrees of connection, and then I guess
It's like one sees the key.
Like it's always, you always need to be introduced. You can't introduce yourself.
Okay.
That's brilliant. And I also mentioned we'd be turning back to talk a little bit about NLP. So we've interviewed a few NLP companies, and they use sort of OpenAI and ChatGPT-3, Genie to name one of them, that's got Y Combinator backing, for example.
Oh yeah.
So where do you see sort of NLP going in the edtech space, and then more importantly within China?
It's for now. I guess it's really hot now after ChatGPT. Everyone just talks about it, and
everyone's
in
using
edtech
it.
field, exactly.
Yeah.
In edtech, the most of the things they are talking about is like the danger of it. Like whether the students are writing article by using ChatGPT or not. And for us, when we created Ketofen AI, it was way before it became really popular. And so we were actually seeing that this would be the feature. I remember like 10 months ago, I shared something like, you come home and you see the window open and then all your clothes and all your stuff all around. So as a result, you would think, oh, maybe some animal came in, or oh, maybe thief broke in, right? So that kind of reasoning. And I was saying, like, we are minutes away to break that. And now you can give the same story to ChatGPT, and it will give you way more reasons than you can think of, right? So this is where we are now. It already passed that. And then when you tell this story like a couple months ago, people will be like, I don't know, maybe this is not going to happen anytime soon. And with that, with the generative AI coming in, so what benefits are, especially for the English learning, English teaching, let's say, you can help teachers to do most of the chores using the AI, which is way more reliable than before. Because back then, sometimes the models wouldn't even generate good results. Let's say the way I'm saying, you need to make exercises after reading exercises, right?
Yep.
And if these questions are not high quality enough, and if the answer is not good enough, then there's even no use for that. But now it gets to that level, and it will keep improving. But there's one thing about the generative part of NLP, like ChatGPT. I think we come to a point where it is like gonna plateau, not like gonna fly away. Because for NLP and AI, the biggest problem is generally the machine, the hardware. I mean, it become the hardware now. Back then, it used to be the data, and now, they scraped everything that's possible, and the model is created. Maybe it will be a little bit better. And what's going to happen, probably, lots of people will start using this and generating content for the internet. And later on, when they scrape, it will be like its own generation. So you will use that to train itself. So that's why
generations of generation.
Exactly. So that's why we have a feeling that it might be plateauing until there is an hardware breakthrough. So to train it even like faster. they say quantum, but I don't know how far away we are from that.
We'll see. So we have time for one final question, and I just wanted to ask more about kind of your journey as a founder in China. What advice would you give to any kind of, I guess, doesn't have to be, you know, PHBS alumni, but any would-be sort of entrepreneurs that are thinking of, I guess, embarking on this sort of journey, going to China and looking to do business here even. What advice would you give that you wish you maybe had given what you've accomplished with Kitovan?
Thanks. So what I would say, probably if you want to come to China, you need to, as an entrepreneur, you always need to be open-minded, right? But if you come to China, maybe multiply that by 10. If you wanna do business here or even survive, right? This is like one thing I would say. But another one is here the competition is super fierce. Like if someone see that you are successful with that business and then you are generating some revenue, they can, like, they will make a decision in a day, and a week later maybe a company already started, and a week later the team is assembled to try to like copy what you do, or not like because in our business it's not like copyable, but they will try to enter to that area, right? So you need to be ready to be really quick here, and always keep like a distance between the next competitor, especially in China, if you become a little bit successful.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So let's be open-minded, 10x. and the competition.
Get ready for it. Yeah, exactly.
Get ready for it. Well, that's all we've got time for today, but thank you so much for joining us on Business and Bubble Tea, Erdi.
Oh my God, okay. It was an honor. It was a pleasure, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.